it's easy to get another 100 horsepower out of a stock 460.
Is that right?
It's easy, yeah.
If you want to make
engineers are engineers.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't agree with them, and I'm sure they don't agree with me either, but that's fine.
Hey everybody, welcome again to BarryT's Garage and another episode of Ask Ed. Hi there, Ed.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Nice day today.
It is a wonderful day.
Wonderful day, yeah.
We're having a good day. I know you've been busy today already.
We've been busy. I'm always busy.
Yeah.
Always doing something.
You are amazing. I got to give you credit.
Yeah.
You really keep it moving.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, it's my pleasure to take your questions from the comments on the previous videos. And Ask Ed, you guys often have questions about something he was working on or showing us.
That's what we got.
And so here we go again. Yeah. Question from A. Hill. Is it true that you need some heat in an engine for proper fuel emulsion? They're saying everyone's chasing cooler motors, but sometimes can heat be actually a good thing?
Sure, heat in a motor.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have some heat, yeah. A cold motor, I don't think would put out much horsepower. I think a cold motor would probably, one turn so free as far as rotation. Rotating the motor unless it was warmed up some, with the oil warmed up, and it's only natural that oil is cold, it'd be stiffer or something like that, you know.
Right. The
whole lubrication part of it. But even though you'd want it to warm up, just like if you start a motor in a cold morning, it don't want to run very well.
Right.
You know, and it's kind of stiff, and you warm it up, and now it starts. And even a starter, when the engine is warmed up, the starter works a lot better. Just zoom, it's half a turn is running.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing up until it gets to a certain temperature, and it really don't have much effect on it until it gets over 200 degrees.
Okay.
And over 200 degrees, now we're starting to worry. And the pistons will get hot and expand. We don't want that at all.
Right.
And the rings will expand and get tighter.
Yeah.
So after 200 degrees or 210 or something like this, the engine starts to tighten up. So there's a happy medium in there, about 180, that we like. And some of our things that we kind of like that would be in some of our boat motors, because we got fresh water. We keep that water temperature exactly what we want in a motor.
Oh, right.
And boats, which is a lot of fun. It's easy.
Right.
You know, when you get out here in the hot temperature, then it's not so easy to keep that temperature where you want it.
Yeah, right.
And we end up with all kinds of problems with heater fans on the radiators and thermostats and bigger radiators and smaller and all kinds of things. So that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope I
it's
answered that question, yeah.
You did a good job. And I think some people get confused because we like the fuel to be cool coming from the carburetor.
The fuel is cool because the density is more dense and it's cool.
Right. So there's more power.
So you got more octane.
Yeah, right.
Cool the fuel, it really runs a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a couple things, yeah.
And do I remember hearing correctly that racing cars often warm the engines, pre-warm engines?
Yes, they do, yeah.
Okay. So
and again, our dragsters, we have a pre-warmer on there, and we run the water in the pits before the race. And we'll got a heater in the trailer, and we'll pump water and keep the motor warm.
Okay.
I keep the motor warm at maybe 180 or something like this, and instead of going up the line and getting ready to race, and it's completely cold, and then you have to warm the engine up, and the starter people don't like that. Where you're sitting there running the engine trying to get heat in it. That's sometimes part of that burnout. You do a burnout with the tires, and that warms the tires up. And then I asked some of the questions about some of our competitors. And when we get done with the race, I said, how long of a burnout did he make? He went almost on the quarter mile. It took him half an hour to back up to the starting line again. I said, well, he has some things that we're interested in what he's doing.
Right.
So that's not a good idea.
For
us. We want to know why he's doing that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, he has a secret that we understand what that is too, because we use that too.
Okay.
Got a little something we ain't telling nobody.
Yeah. That's right. You keep it a mystery.
Yeah, keep it a mystery, yeah.
Okay. We've got someone wanting to build an LS race engine. Then they have a cam question.
I'm not too much familiar with that because I've never raced an LS motor.
Okay.
But we do build them in the shop.
Okay.
And we've dynoed some of them. But basically, the ones we've done are not necessarily race motors, we've dynoed some for street cars.
Yeah.
The guy wants to put, just like this car here, it's got an LS motor at this T-bucket here, and it's got 2 4-barrels on it, Edelbrock carburetors on it. I've got a nice camshaft in it with open headers and stuff, so it's just a T-bucket for the street again,
Yeah.
not racing. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that in mind, let's just see what his question is.
okay, see what he has.
He said, there's a lot of new camshafts with wide lobe separation angles, with modern heads flowing way past 200 CFM, some over 300 CFM.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, so I can't really advise you.
Okay.
Have any answers for that at all.
Right. That's not the world you'd have lived in.
Yeah, I've not lived in that
Right.
area. Yeah, I know these LS motors with some of these cylinder heads flow a lot of air.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, flow a lot of air.
There's a viewer named Pete, or Peted. He says he loves the Ford 460. He says it's got much better heads than Cadillacs, in his opinion.
It probably does. It's bigger.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, bigger valves and everything. Yeah, sure.
He says with mild cam with springs, I guess he's talking about the valve springs,
Ring, sure.
can add 100 horsepower to any stock 460. Do you agree that that's possible?
It's easy to get another 100 horsepower out of a stock 460.
Is that right?
It's easy, yeah, because the heads flow a lot. You need some good exhaust, good headers, and a good intake and some carburetor. Sure, you'll get that easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's on the right track with that, and I imagine there's
And
more.
a big camshaft too, because the heads flow a lot.
Okay, so
They're big port heads. Yeah, he's having fun.
okay, he's having fun. So that's another thing about the cam. The cam has to match the rest of the head flow, right?
Yes, and compression ratio too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah,
Well, there you go, Peter.
Yeah.
He's agreeing with you. There you go.
Yeah.
The dog bone style gear, we're talking about that timing gears, right? With the dog bone idling gears that replace the chain.
Oh, that would be gear drive.
Gear drive, yes.
Yeah, gear drive. Yeah, right.
Yes. So this Anthony writes in, he says, I'm concerned that dog bone style gear drive puts a harmonic into the cam and can affect the cam timing, and can also blow the front end off of an engine with too much RPM. The single gear Millidan style doesn't do that. So he's got his favorite kind of gear drive, apparently.
Yeah. Dog bone makes a lot of noise.
Makes a lot of noise.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of noise, yeah.
And it's a very
And
distinguishable.
it's something that would be, I would not run that on a dirt track car,
Okay.
and I would run on a drag car.
Okay.
I would. Not so many RPMs, like you said, probably maximum 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be maximum. I would run that thing
Okay.
because you end up with just more pieces going around,
Right.
more stuff flying around than the motor. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a favor of that dog bone,
Okay.
not at all.
So I think when we were talking about, we were explaining what it was.
The same way with the dog bone, 2 idlers,
Yeah.
so it makes one gear go one way and makes the cam go the same way. Yeah.
Right.
So, anyways, the same time you run a gear drive, you have to have a good fluid balancer on it. A good fluid balancer on the crankshaft, because the harmonics on the crankshaft will break the gears easily.
Oh.
Yeah, you'll smash that. That's what causes the gear drive to come apart most of the time. It's the crankshaft vibrating in the main bearings.
Okay.
Yeah, the vibration. Yeah.
Okay. So that's where, I guess, because of the way a chain is designed, it kind of
Yes.
absorbs some of
It
that.
absorbs that vibration. Yeah,
I see.
harmonics. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And as a follow-up on the 460, he says he's talking about advancing the cam gear by 1 tooth is the same as advancing the crank gear by half a tooth. I guess he's trying to figure out.
We're talking about the crank gear. The crank gear on a 460, the tooth don't line up with the dot.
Oh. Okay.
They just don't. It's a half a tooth off. That's why the camshafts are all retarded in a 460.
I see.
So if you buy a police gear or a highway patrol police gear, lower crank gear, they line up.
Really?
So that advances the camshaft automatically in a 460 truck. Advances it like it's supposed to be. And they run super then.
Yeah. So that half a tooth is probably like maybe 10 degrees or some number of degrees.
Yeah, probably
difference,
8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the gears, because usually on ours, we end up with one tooth is around 14 degrees.
Yeah. So you can't move it a tooth over. You have to get
you can't
a
do
gear
it
that's
a whole
keyed.
tooth. No.
You have to get a gear that's keyed correctly.
Yeah. If you do it a whole tooth, you'd end up getting the intake valves pretty close to the pistons.
Okay.
But each to his own. If you do some bookwork and some measuring and stuff like this, I'm not sure. I've never done one, a whole tooth, and find out how much the valves are missing the pistons. But you have to be careful there.
Yeah.
You have to do your homework. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question is from Car Pilot, but it's another 460 question. He says, one of the few problems with the 460 was that garbage Autolite 4-barrel carburetor. It was better used for a wheel chock. So he's got strong feelings about that.
That'd be a good thing, or else it would be okay to throw in the river for your boat or something like that. Yeah, that carburetor was no good at all.
You don't have...
I don't see anything good about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ed is in full agreement with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Doug says, hey Ed, I've built the 460, 429 engines for 40 years. So he's built a few of those.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're the best and most versatile, long-lasting engine that Ford made. And even today, there's still tons of them around. My experience has shown me that they're mostly all the same with the exception of a motorhome engine. Some of these motors have reinforcements in the lifter valley like a Cleveland, and it's very common to take one apart with well over 100,000 miles and still find hone marks from the factory. Have you noticed any difference with the motorhome engine?
Well, the motorhome engine, if he does, I've never paid much attention. I never took a motorhome and started repairing it knowing that it was come out of a motorhome.
Right.
But the Lincoln motors, Lincoln, it isn't finding a Lincoln with 200,000 miles and still has a crosshatch and no ridge.
Has Ed had any experience with Offenhauser's Dual Port 360 intake manifold?
A little bit. We used to use them. I haven't heard one of those for a while. I think the other day I seen one in the shop.
Okay.
Come in on a core motor on a small block Chevy.
No kidding.
And they were a little unusual manifold, and I think they were made for more of a gas mileage more than anything because they were dual port, kind of unusual design. And I think that manifold was probably 25 years ago at least.
Yeah.
As far as I know, yeah. It seemed like it was good for gas mileage, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course the bigger ports for the secondaries, they seem to work out fine. But I never did any testing as far as dyno testing or anything like that.
Right.
On them, but they seem like okay, yeah.
Yeah, you don't know anything bad about them either.
I don't know anything bad about them, no.
Right. Okay.
They would run smooth, idle smooth, with that small port, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good, yeah.
Interesting. Next question is from Dave. He's talking about the Olds 455 big block engine, okay?
Sure.
He says, that oiling system pretty much sucks. He says the fact that the oil goes to the lifters first before the crank is the big weakness, in his opinion.
Yeah, that's right.
You agree?
Yeah.
He said there's an aftermarket block now available that's totally redesigned with priority mains oiling system, and that's the way to go if you want to make a big power Olds now.
If you want to make a big power Oldsmobile.
Yes.
And that would be for your jet boat or something.
Okay, right.
I don't know what else you'd use it for, but we had lots of boats with 455 Olds in them.
Okay.
Again, that's that one, and I think there's some plugs you could put in that block down in the main bearing, right above the main bearings, to block some of that oil.
To send it to the mains?
Yeah, send it to the mains. And there's 3 holes in that block right above the main bearing that go to different places and stuff. And so again, we've had some problems with those Oldsmobile motors and boats when we could repair them. And most of the time, the guy had the boat for 4 or 5 years and wanted us to rebuild the motor. And it wasn't only our problem, but we talked about all the rest of the people here in town that we always had some. We got along. We get along with everybody in town. I'm sure we do. I hope we do.
Yeah.
But in those days, if somebody had a problem, we called the other guy and said, hey, you got a problem with this? Sure enough, when we talk over it, 2 or 3 of us and decide what we want to do with it. But when you get done with the overhauling the motor, then you'd be real careful. Oil the system. Pump oil in the distributor and then take the spark plugs out and oil filter and additives and stuff and crank it over a lot with the spark plugs out before you start it up. Make sure all that oil was completely oiled.
Okay.
And so it didn't starve because it goes to crankshaft and it goes to rod bearings last
Wow.
after the lifters are full. So
Okay.
that was the problem right there. It's like he knows what he's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think they did that?
I think it was just poor design.
Just didn't think it through?
Yeah, they didn't think it through.
Do you
It
think
was okay with a car, and again, I never followed up to find out if GM had some special way of starting them up when they first made them. When they first put them in the Oldsmobile car, because if they'd have had much trouble with them when the motor was brand new in a car, or where they put it in, if they'd have had problems, they would have fixed it.
Yeah. Is
The
it
engineer
possible? I don't know engines the
So-
way you do, but so I'm going to ask a question, maybe a dumb question.
Yeah.
But could they have been thinking they wanted to pump up the lifters first? Would that be
There's no
anything?
reason to do that. No.
No? Okay.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Go if you want to make big.
Engineers are engineers.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't agree with them,
hmm
and I'm sure they don't agree with me either. But that's fine.
Well, we've got a follow-up question with him. He wrote a couple big comments. So, Dave, thank you for joining
Yeah,
with us
good.
here. He says now he must be doing a lot of work on these because he's investigated that there are now 3 restrictor kits out there.
See, that's what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
Restrictor kits.
One's a set that you hammer into the main bearing saddles to limit the cam bearing oil. They call it useless garbage. Yet another's 16 threaded resistors for lifter oil feed holes, but those are only good for solid lifter cams, not hydraulics. And the third is push rods with smaller oil holes, good for either type of cam. I don't know if
It's unfamiliar to me.
yeah, you haven't
We
heard
just
of those.
solved the problems that we had
By plugging
on
those- that
on the
hole.
boat motors. The only thing we've ever done is 455 boat motors.
Yeah,
And jet boats, there was hundreds and thousands of those.
right.
He knows more than I know about them
Yeah,
because it sounds like he's different things, and maybe he's, like you said, maybe he's overhauled those motors and he's specialist, and he would know more about it than we do.
yeah.
Sounds like he's on the right track, and I'm sure he's doing a good job.
You know a lot about a lot of things. Sometimes people specialize into a very exact.
Yes, they do.
thing.
Yeah.
So that's all good. Here's that guy. That guy is asking, do you have a favorite powertrain combo for top fuel or drag racing combinations? What do you like? What do you think is really good for drag racing? What kind of engines, what kind of transmissions do you like?
You don't have much choice.
Okay.
You know, there's probably the Chrysler motor.
Yeah, the Hemi.
Yeah, the Hemi motors, and there's not much choice. You have to run a Chrysler motor, and of course, blowers, you can take 871 blower or 1271, and the big injectors. I don't know anything about those things.
Yeah.
I've never owned a funny car or anything. We've just messed around with the ones we have here, like that 392 in my age. And
Yeah.
I've done a couple 426s for my friends, and I have one guy in Texas that he wants me to build a 426, and I don't know, it's a 500 cubic inch blown fuel injected motor on alcohol.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We're going to build that one of these days, and that would be for like a alcohol top fuel alcohol car.
Yeah.
We run on alcohol, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that'd be a 500 cubic inch.
Would needle bearings beat sleeve bearings in a cam?
We run needle bearings in our cams all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, on the junior fuel car, yeah.
Okay. And
We've
what's
done
the
that for quite a while.
what's the advantage of the needle bearings?
They just roll quicker,
Okay.
easier, smoother, no friction whatsoever.
Okay. And his follow-up question is, are you aware of any pistons that use needle bearings?
Any what?
Pistons? I guess rod bearings?
Oh, rod bearings?
Yes.
I think I've seen some advertisements, but I've never known of anything
Okay.
myself, no.
Yeah.
I think some of those, I'm not sure, some of the Formula One cars may have some roller bearings or needle bearings in the crank.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm really not positive. I don't know anybody doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's on that same track because he's thinking in terms of the 10,000 RPM racing.
Yeah, right.
engines,
Yeah,
so-
12,000.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're flat cranks.
Daryl's a very good part of our program here.
Okay.
He's a good commenter. He's got good questions. Question today from Daryl is, can you tell us a little bit about rocker arm ratios when you're setting up heads and how they affect your setup on a cylinder head?
Well, rocker arm ratios, we've always played with those. Our dirt track cars, a long track or short track, and doing things on 1.6s, and then some our cars, a big block Chevys with 1.7s and 1.6s and over a 1.5. I think a Chevrolet rocker, the stock rocker, is not even a 1.5.
Okay.
It may be a 145 or something like that.
Okay,
then
so
you can get a good rocker, it's a 152. It's a little bit better than a 150, which is, everybody says the Chevy rockers are 150s, but they're not really.
okay,
So we like the 165s. Sometimes we put those on the intakes, and then sometimes we put them on the exhaust because the exhaust valve's so small compared to the intakes. If we put big intakes on them, like a over 2-inch intake, 205s and things, and depends on what size the head is, then we'll put the 1.6s on the exhaust because the exhaust ports are small.
okay. Now let me back you up 1 minute though.
So
You just named a lot of numbers.
yeah,
What does 1.6 mean? What does 1.5?
well, that's the ratio of the rocker arm and the push rod.
So is that like 1.6 to
Yes,
1?
1.65 to 1 ratio.
Okay.
So you take the cam lift is 500, and then 1.5, it'd be 1.7 then.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. You'll figure it out. I'm not sure on those numbers, but
Yeah.
don't quote me on those. But yeah, it makes the lifter. That's where you get the valve lift
Okay.
with a short lobe on the cam. The rocker
Okay.
arm goes through a 1.5. Rocker arm ratio stock Chevy.
So
1.7's on the big block.
so the rocker arm ratio basically is multiplying the distance.
That's right, exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
have
I
to-
don't know about the LS motors again.
Yeah.
I think there's some of those rocker arms for those, and even the 500-inch Cadillacs had some different ones there with different rocker arm ratios
Uh-huh.
to open the valve more. So there's
And
a lot of
again-
that rocker arm things, and it's a good idea there. Just do your homework.
And again, if you
So-
change the lift more on the valve, you better make sure it's not hitting the piston, right?
That's right, yeah. And that little bit don't really interfere that much. And so you start putting a big camshaft and changing these rocker
I
arm
see.
ratios. Yeah.
Okay.
All goes together, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a good question.
See, Daryl gives us good questions. Thank you, Daryl.
Yeah.
We're coming back to a carburetor question. I really enjoyed the Q&A video with Ed on carburetors. Can Ed shed any light on the Chrysler ThermoQuad carbs? I currently have one on an old 440 Mopar, a little hot rod truck that I built many years ago, and I still drive it on the farm, most of it in the summer. Most guys think these carbs are junk, but what do you have to say about ThermoQuads?
Actually, ThermoQuad was a Dodge, and of course the ThermoQuad was that plastic float bowl.
Okay.
Well, kept the fuel cold.
Oh,
In fact, kept it cooler. The carburetor is much cooler. The fuel is colder in it.
that's probably where the thermo...
That was the thermal part of it, yeah.
Okay.
And then Carter made ThermoQuad carburetors, and they were awesome carburetors. I think some of the faster pro stock cars in the days and 70s and stuff had 2 4-barrels, 2 of those ThermoQuads on it. And I'm trying to think of the guy that used to race Camaro, but he had 2 ThermoQuads, and the ThermoQuads that Carter made, the race version, were awesome.
Okay.
And they had all kinds of jets and metering rods, and I think I have a bunch of that stuff
Okay.
left over from the 1975s and stuff. And those were awesome carburetors.
Okay.
Even the linkage on the side where you hook the throttle was all kinds of adjustment. You could change the positions on it and stuff. There was all kinds, but that was a really awesome carburetor, and I don't know what happened to it. I haven't seen one for a long time. I think they came stock on 340s
Okay.
and some maybe, yeah, I think
And
340
you had a
Duster.
440 also.
Yeah, the 440, yeah.
So what I keep seeing, I keep hearing something from you that I feel it's a pattern, and that is some of the better carburetors had a lot of adjustments, but what that meant is if you didn't know what you're doing, you could really mess them up.
Yeah, you could probably, yeah.
So some people would think they're junk because they didn't know how to
Yeah.
get it going right.
But metering rods, I think I got boxes, a whole assortment of those metering rods and jets for those carburetors.
Do you?
And they were easy to work on.
Okay.
The ThermoQuad was, and again, it was like a small primaries and big secondaries like Quadrajet.
Okay. Yep.
I think that was their feeling, and they, again, we had them and they ran awesome.
Okay. Did it make the big noise like the Quadrajet?
Probably did with the air cleaner, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a good cover. It's good that he has one and he takes care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this comes up from time to time, so we'll go ahead and take another run at it. Someone's asking, what's your favorite engine oil to protect an engine? And I'm going to, since there's so many ways you can look at it, we're just going to say for a street car that's got some power.
We always go back to Gibbs oil, racing favorite oils and some of that. We had Quaker State. We were racing those for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't care really, not the one we didn't care that much for Valvoline. I think some of our Quaker State oils had some additives in it that would, if you let the car set overnight, it separated the oil, the stuff in the oil.
Really?
So if you actually had a glass oil pan, and let the car set overnight, the bottom half-inch would be solid black.
Really?
From contamination in the oil. The rest of it would be crystal clear. So we might drain the oil off it and drain the black off of it and put the bolt back in again, the plug back in again, and put another quart of fresh oil in it, and we're ready to go the next day instead of throwing the whole 8 quarts away.
Wow.
So I think it had that oil thing. And then somewhere along the line, we were having trouble with zinc in the oil. That when the catalytic converters come around.
Yep.
So then someone said that, no, our oil is perfect. And come to find out later on, we found out it wasn't. And they did leave the zinc out of it. So the zinc would plug up didn't plug it up. It'd coat the catalytic converter.
Right.
And then the catalytic converter would never get hot again.
I see.
The car would fail the emissions then.
Okay, and now
So
what would be the reason to have the zinc as far as the engine wanting zinc? What does it do?
It just lubricates it better and coats the things with
Okay.
a lubrication coil, a special thing.
Yeah.
That's like some of the engines that, of course, you always had. And all the synthetic oil is still oil-based oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just refine it more synthetic. I'm not a good favor of synthetic oils, but again, we go back to the new cars and our new trucks and stuff. We have to put that oil in it that came with it.
Yeah.
That same one, and keep your same brand of oil. Don't start changing from one brand to another one.
Okay.
And our oil people told us years ago, if you change from one to the other one, you need to put a neutral oil in it and kind of flush the old oil out.
Interesting.
Because some of it is like a plus and minus, a negative. So one will fight the other one like a positive and negative, like a magnet.
Really? Different
One will
kinds of
fight
that?
the other ones. And,
It's pretty complicated business.
We'll go back to our friend in the oil business and
Yeah, Lake Speed.
Lake
Junior.
Speed, and
Yeah.
we'll ask him.
Okay. We'll ask Lake Speed Junior.
Yeah.
He's our go-to.
Whatever he says,
Yeah.
I'll go with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, Sean has a question. Back in the 80s, racers would take a Ford 302, pull the stock rods and pistons, and reinstall them backwards, called the flip-flop. That's what he calls it.
Yeah, that's right.
And it changed the compression a little bit, and they swear it's a real thing. Have you heard about that?
Well, we didn't start doing that so much as our pistons have gotten offset on the wrist pin.
Uh-huh.
Set up. And so a lot of times we would buy racing pistons, like Ford's True Pistons and stuff. Mm-hmm. And if we're on our race motor, that's a race motor, we put the arrows going back.
Okay.
And that would raise that wrist pin angle in the piston. It may be offset just a little bit. So the piston would be freer to run. It made a little noise, more piston noise slap.
Okay.
But it was move that rod angle a little different.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they were doing.
Okay, so at top dead center, would it change the compression?
No,
Okay.
it really did. I never heard of raising the compression
Yeah.
by offsetting turn the pistons on all the notches backwards or all the arrows going back. No,
Okay.
I don't think it ever changed the compression ratio.
Close
But I
measuring.
would never take a 302 Ford, a stock motor, take it apart, turn the pistons backwards, and put it back together again. I would not do that.
You're a big fan of building them fresh right from the
Well,
start.
there was a reason for that. It was quieter when you started up when it's cold.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
And the piston slap in 302s is a normal for them, or of cracking the piston skirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they'll crack the piston skirts, and if you get one, it sounds like it's a 302 Ford motor, and a pickup truck or a van or something, it sounds like it's got a canary in the oil pan. Well, you got 2 or 3 piston crack skirts are cracked.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
can't be good.
Sound like a canary in the oil pan there. So, but that's not good.
All right. Okay, I think this is going to be our last question, and it's what your experience is, Ed. Someone's asking, have you ever ridden in a 1987 Buick Grand National? I remember that turbocharged or supercharged, I think.
They were turbocharged.
With turbo?
With the V6 motor, yeah.
Yeah, V6.
It surprised me how many there is around.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's some of those are cloned or not, but I never knew that they made that many of them. But you get a bunch of them together, and you hear some car shows and stuff. There's several in the car show.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many is in Phoenix, Arizona that people actually own and don't drive, hid in the garage someplace. But what an awesome car.
You liked it, huh?
Yeah, I love that car, yeah. It was the most, for V6, and it was like the heads are so big you can look in the intake port and see through the intake port and out the back and see the muffler almost. That's how big they were.
Well, that's amazing. And I guess
They put out extremely a lot of horsepower, and it was really awesome.
Yeah. Thanks again for watching another episode of BarryT's Garage and for sending all your questions for Ed. And thank you, Ed, for coming along.
It's been fun. Good.
Good.
Have a good day.
All right.
Enjoy.
Thanks for being a part of BarryT's Garage. And if you want some Ed Smith, some hats and shirts and all, it's just edsmithspeed.shop. Head over there and have a look.